The Aragua members were arrested after a violent home invasion in Aurora, Colorado, where cops say 2 victims were kidnapped, bound, one of them stabbed. It happened at the same apartment complex, remember that one, where this armed takeover happened this summer back in August. One Aurora councilwoman has been speaking out from the beginning.
I am tired of this being portrayed as just another gang in Aurora. This is so heinous. This is a whole different level, and I am tired of it. I've been called a liar. I've been told this was in my imagination. This has been downplayed, and people are suffering, and I will not be silenced on this issue.
Well, that woman in that soundbite, Danielle Jurinsky, joins us right now from Aurora. Danielle, good morning to you.
Good morning.
I don't get it. They called, when you were talking about simply things that had happened, they called you essentially delusional. She's a liar. It's all your imagination. You're not a liar. You're a truth teller. And it was not your imagination.
That's right. And it's interesting because our governor was asked about his comment yesterday if he would like to update that. And he really had nothing to say about this. This is unfortunately not something that you want to be able to say, I told you so on, but I told you so. And nobody wanted to listen to me. This very much turned into political theater leading up to the presidential election. And many people have suffered. This isn't just assault. This isn't just fist fights. This is absolute torture, what some of these people have been going through. And once the Americans were moved out of the complex, this is the most vulnerable population left. These are other migrants who some of them don't even really realize where they are. They were simply dropped off in the middle of the night in some cases.
Right. And some of the torture regarding this home invasion, this most recent one there, one of the people had their fingernails pulled out. I mean, it's absolutely barbaric. There's been a sea change, though, in Aurora because you've got a new police chief now who apparently is taking this more seriously.
He is. He led a strong press conference yesterday. The police response to these 2 victims was huge. The police presence in this neighborhood right now is huge. He has made clear that we will not stand for this.
Right.
It is a new day in the Aurora Police Chief's office.
Yeah, and Danielle, before you go, who is it who has wanted you to essentially be quiet?
Well, it's somewhere between the Aurora mayor, the Denver mayor, the governor of Colorado, and I think local liberal media.
They just don't want you to tell people what we can see with our own 2 eyes right there.
That's correct.
Upside down world. Well, we appreciate your candor and your honesty and joining us today here on Fox and Friends. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
These people are obviously fed up hearing that there's no problem in Aurora, Colorado. Let's bring in Victor Avila, retired ICE supervisory special agent. He knows gangs and this territory well, a lot of experience back in Mexico with the Los Zetas drug cartel. Victor, good to have you back on the program. I want to start actually by playing this from ABC News this week. The Sunday show happened back in October, but given this news, it's quite relevant. Watch this.
The incidents were limited to a handful of apartment complexes, and the mayor said our dedicated police officers have acted on those concerns. A handful of problems.
Only, Martha, do you hear yourself? Only a handful of apartment complexes in America were taken over by Venezuelan gangs.
I mean, that's a moment that keeps on giving. You can hear how incredulous the vice president-elect is, Victor. What's your take on this crime? What markings do you see in it of potential gang activity?
A couple of things, Martha. One is that I'm glad that the city officials and police are publicly acknowledging this, because the locals and my contacts there in Colorado have known this for a long, long time, and they've been terrorized by the Tren de Aragua for a long, long time. And, one of the things that I have been studying Tren de Aragua for a long time, I've been getting a lot of updates and briefings from a lot of specialists that deal with this, this is not a gang. This is reminiscent of a cartel because of the organization, because of the backing of money, finances, activity with the actual cartel in Mexico. And more troubling is their association with, obviously, the link with Venezuela and the Maduro regime, but especially the contact that they have and the relationship with Hezbollah and Iran. And I've been trying to kind of put this out the last several months out there, because this is what my intelligence contacts are telling me to say, please mention this, Victor, because this is how makes these group of individuals a lot more dangerous, which makes it a big national security issue.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up that theory again, and it's a very strong one. Just put the map up real quick. We have to go, but Venezuelan prison gang presence spreads across the United States, and clearly this is a destabilizing impact on our country to have this infiltration, that you discuss, and the potential ties to Hezbollah. Just a real quick back-end thought on that, Victor, before we go.
Well, it just I studied and investigated the cartels for many years, and this is just like them. These are terrorist organizations, in my opinion, that should be dealt that way. The old way that I used to investigate, and those old ways of going after these guys is now a null and void, and really a stale way of doing this. We have to approach them a very different way, and I think we are starting January 20th.
We look forward to that, and hopefully it can eradicate these violent gangs and the very organized nature of them across the country right now. Victor Avila, always a great voice on this, of a wake-up call for all of us. Thank you, Victor.
A shocking home invasion in Aurora, Colorado, now being linked to the most vicious and bloodthirsty criminal migrant gang operating in America. ICE is now confirming 16 suspected members of the Venezuelan gang, Tren de Aragua, have been taken into custody for allegedly kidnapping and torturing 2 victims. It happened at the same apartment complex that we kept showing you back over the summer, where armed migrant men were seen roaming the halls with their guns. The horrific crime now raising questions about whether Colorado officials and the media downplayed the presence of this gang in Colorado. Here's the Aurora police chief.
They were pistol whipped, they were beat, they were mistreated. One of the male was actually stabbed, had a stab wound. So does that fall in the category of torture for me? Yeah, it does. It is incredibly hard to identify specifically as TDA because there is no specific markers. There's a high assumption that they may be affiliated with the TDA gang. But again, I am not going to say 100% positively until that is validated and verified.
Trump's incoming border czar has a message for the Aurora police chief after the arrest of the suspected gang members.
So he's talking the talk, but let's hope he walks the walk and hand these people to ICE when he's done with them, because we can remove them not only from the community but from the country. And if law enforcement officers don't help us do that, we're certainly going to do that starting January 21st.
Criminal migrants are causing chaos in the nation's biggest city. New York City Mayor Eric Adams is opening up to Martha McCallum on how he plans to get them out.
I thought our conversation was a great conversation. Tom and I both sat down, and we both agree on violent individuals should not remain in our country. What we should be doing at our border, we could be making that determination. Are we going to allow you to come in? We are creating a pipeline of criminality by creating these terrible criteria.
Judge, in Colorado, we were talking about this story, and you remember you had local officials, a congressman, and the governor even saying, it's actually not that big a deal, it's not a problem. And then you had this situation.
Well, it was clear that they were telling us not to believe our lying eyes. As we see these gangs come in with all kinds of, equipment and crowbars or whatever they're using to break open these apartment buildings. And at the same time, we were talking to people living in the apartment buildings. So they didn't want to make it look like there was a problem, but whatever their motivation was, it was a lie. Now we know that Tren de Aragua has organizations in every major city in the United States. And this was really emphasized, I think it was in October, when Martha Raddatz said to J.D. Vance at the debate, when he started talking about the Venezuelan gangs, TDA, taking over apartment complexes. And she like chides him, and she says, I know exactly what you're talking about. I know the facts here. And it's limited to a handful of apartment complexes. So that's okay. Look, we've got some issues here.
And that's where he said his famous line of, do you hear yourself?
Do you hear yourself? Exactly. Since 20 2022, they have spent $350 million on illegals in Colorado. $350 million. And the victims now are more afraid of the migrants than they are of the police. So at least now they're reporting these cases to the police. But we've got to understand that there is a cultural distinction. They come here, many of them, from countries where cartels run things. And their values are different than ours, and they think that they can come here and exercise the same kind of behavior. And America is complicit, especially the left, in sanctuary cities. Because in these sanctuary cities, they're saying, come to our city. We're not going to agree with ICE or deportation. And so what's going to happen is every sanctuary city is going to be loaded with those criminal illegals who do not want to be deported. That's where hell is going to start burning. All right. Now, two things that I think are important. In every matter, in every state where there is a crime committed by an illegal, there should be an enhanced punishment, one step up. Because you shouldn't be here in the first place. That's number one. And I don't give a darn if you came in on the CBP app. That's not legal as far as I'm concerned. And number two, if you kill an American citizen, there's got to be a death penalty for you.
What about the victims in this crime here who are afraid to come forward?
Well, what it looks like to me, and it seems to be happening once a month, it's collection time. They're torturing these people because they have to pay not only the apartments, they have to pay them for their fake protection, or worse, these are the ones who are collecting from the traffickers. So this family's having their fingernails pulled out. That's for information. Where's the money? When are you going to have the money? They're not killing them, they're torturing them. I don't understand in any country in the world that as a mayor, you could sit there and be like, it happens a little bit. If it happens to one person, we would all be outraged. If there was one house in our neighborhood that this happened to, neighborhood watches would be formed. But the fact that they're not doing anything to these, and you want people to come out and say, hey, I need help, it's past that. They are getting tortured, their loved ones in other places. Maybe, we keep talking about where are these children? These might be the parents who are still trying to get their children, but they don't have the money, so they're getting tortured. Who are they on the phone with the whole time when you see these guys kicking in doors, answering other things? The fact that we would even have to wait to January 20. Where are the policemen? Where is the FBI? They should be cracking down. This should have never have happened once. The fact that we're even talking about it is disgusting. And these families, eventually, they're not going to report because everyone in that apartment thing heard the screams, saw what happened. I'm sure they videotaped it and they showed everyone, if you don't pay us, this is what's going to happen to you. So it's just going to continue to grow, and eventually it's going to spill out, and it's going to start happening in the middle-class neighborhoods where they start showing up. And then it won't be until it happens into the mayor's front yard where you'll see something happen. And I hope it doesn't get that far.
And I think that this gang has presence in 29 cities. Jesse.
Yep. Yeah. It's debt bondage, you're right. So they paid the traffickers money to get smuggled, and then they owe them. And they'll never be able to work it off because why would they let you work it off? So you have millions of people who are here illegally, and they have to do whatever they're told or else they're going to get tortured. And this is going to go on for years. This could never end. So I don't see anything stopping this at all. And it's drug trafficking, sex trafficking, kidnapping, carjacking, everyth's on the table. And these are poor apartment complexes. What are you going to do if there's just one door in front of you? You have people right now, CEOs of healthcare companies, hiring around-the-clock security. And even then, they don't feel safe. Every American needs to do an audit of their security at their house. They have to make sure they have firearms. You can do lights on timers. You can do motion lights. You can get Ring cameras, all sorts of cameras. Dogs, Berna.
Because this is happening in broad daylight. This isn't happening at night, Jesse. This is broad daylight.
So it's broad daylight, and you don't even know who's in the gang. There could be someone scouting for a gang that could look like an old woman, and she's actually working for the gang, and she's just doing a security check of how your posture is. Do you have a dog? Do you have a gate? Do you have a security guard? Everything is now more dangerous than it was 4 years ago, and that's because of this guy. I'm pointing this way at Jessica, and she knows what I mean by the big guy.
Just thought you were calling me a dude.
Jessica, do you want to comment on Colorado, or you watch? I know we were together watching the Eric Adams interview with Martha McCallum, and she touched on immigration quite a bit.
Yeah, well, I think that they're linked. And there's been a lot of discussion since the election results about what the mandate is for the Republicans right now. And I think you're looking at what the mandate is, that people in blue cities across this country voted their disapproval with how it's being managed. And this is one of the key reasons for that. Not only just the migrant crisis, and Mayor Adams said that we're getting 8,000 undocumented people per week, which was obviously completely unsustainable. But people are saying there is a safety issue for us, and this is part and parcel of that. And I do think this is one of the easiest ways for liberals to break with traditional sanctuary city policy, where you say this was never conceived to protect a gang member, right? This was never conceived to protect someone who was committing violent crime. And we want to change it. And whether you put it to a vote in front of the city council and let them deal with it, let them have all of those people show up like it happened in Chicago, right? Where they opened it up and everyone came in there saying, no, we're actually not interested in being managed that way, and let them deal with it and get voted out. Or you'll see a change where people like Michelle Wu in Boston will be so out of step with the general public that there will be forced consequences to it. I think that this is, not a moment for resistance. This is a moment for cooperation to get the most dangerous undocumented people out of this country. And then we can have a conversation about everybody else.
All right, the first city Tom Homan plans to clean up is Chicago, where residents are lashing out at Mayor Brandon Johnson.
You caused all this money to go to illegal immigrants, not Harold Washington. You gonna be held accountable for it.
All you illegals, you ain't gonna have no Merry Christmas. You're gonna have a Merry Deportation Christmas.
We need Tom Homan here in Chicago. We need Donald Trump. We need to start voting different in these cities like New York and Chicago. You got a 14% approval rating, so the people is looking like they're telling you that you're fired, man. Can you do the job, Mr. Brandon Johnson?
And how did Mayor Brandon Johnson respond to his constituents? Well, he threw him out of the meeting.
Thank you. Please restore order.
Can I have your attention, please? Ladies and gentlemen, please go to your closest exit.
Joining me now, Chicago resident Vashon Tunsil, who was at that Chicago City Council meeting. Vashon, what's the biggest problem you're seeing with illegals in Chicago right now?
Well, they're getting all of our resources, all the American people in Chicago. Brandon Johnson has given these illegal immigrants over, $500 million while American people struggle and starve on the street. But not only that, now he wants to protect these illegals that's here in Chicago, Illinois illegally. And I just don't believe that's the right thing to do as a mayor when you have a 14% approval rating. And then the people realize why our city is so bad. It's because they keep voting Democrat.
Oh, which brings me to the point. I mean, it can't be more obvious in Chicago how bad things have gotten. I mean, I think I hadn't been to Chicago in maybe 3 or 4 years when I went to the DNC with the Fox crew to cover the Democratic convention. And they cleaned it up a lot, but it was different. It's a different place. And you go to the South Side, it's even worse. And it's always been a little bit dangerous, but it's much worse. So what is it? How do they lock down as many of the voters as they do lock down to vote for the Democrats?
Well, I mean, me personally, I just think it's like a generational thing. Like their mothers and their fathers, they tell them to vote Democrat because the Republican, they're for the rich and they're for the white people and this, that, and the third, which I don't think to be true at all. I think that Republicans, they have their best interest for black people. The Democrats, they're the ones that started the KKK. And me personally, me growing up, and I see the Democratic Party, you look at people like Barack Obama, and it's just like, it's not looking good for what they're doing to these inner cities like Chicago and New York. And I just feel like it's just brainwashing at this point.
Man, what did Obama do for Chicago? I mean,
Absolutely.
Vashon, wait, hold on one moment. The incoming border czar, Tom Homan, is actually still with us. And he's been listening in on the conversation, everything you've been saying. I think he wants one of your hats. Can you tell Tom directly what you need him to do in Chicago, Vashon?
Well, first I want to say is thank you so much for joining me, Tom Homan. I really appreciate these words with you. And Sir, please, I don't care what Brandon Johnson tell you, please come clean up Chicago, Illinois. We need you, Tom Homan. This place sucks right now. And like you said, our city sucks because our governor sucks and our mayor sucks. You were absolutely right about that. And I mean, it couldn't get more broad than that. And I just really appreciate you coming here, just speaking to the people of Chicago, you know, listening to us more than our own mayor. You're actually doing a better job than the mayor is when it comes to listening to us.
Tom?
Well, look, I was there 2 weeks ago, and I spoke to the people there, and you're right. I said the mayor sucks and the governor sucks because of them protecting illegal aliens in your city, especially criminal illegal aliens. Their number one responsibility is protecting the communities. So look, I made a promise 2 weeks ago that I'd be back, and I will be back. When this operation starts, I will be in Chicago, and men and women at ICE are going to be on the streets doing their job. So I appreciate your support. And I met with, when I was out there, I met with black pastors, I met with leaders of the community. They're all on the same page. The only one on a different page is the mayor. And we're going to prove to him that we can come in and make that city safer with or without his help.
Thank you so much, Tom Homan.
Yeah, Vashon and Tom, we're going to check back with you in, let's say, a couple of months, Tom, to see how things have changed. We'll give you 3 months to see how things are progressing, because it's not going to happen overnight. This is going to be a process. And if I know one thing about Tom Homan, he's unstoppable once he actually has the power and the authority to act. So I know that about Tom very well. Vashon and Tom, thank you both.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.